I want to talk about how it all ends. You know, a lot of people are wondering, how does this virus end? But I'm more interested in how does everything end? Because one day we're all going to enter into eternity. And so I want to look this morning in Revelation. We're going to do a glance through or overview of Revelation. And so this morning, if you have a Bible, you can turn to Revelation chapter 13. If you don't, don't worry, we'll have the verses up on the screen. So, in Revelation, the Bible tells us in chapter 6, I want to start just overviewing from chapter 6. In chapter 6, verse 2, we see that people were conquered. Prior to that, the first 3 chapters, we had Jesus reveal himself to his 7 churches. Chapters 4 and 5, we see John in heaven with Jesus, which is where we all look to be. And in chapter 6, we see that the people were conquered. In chapter 6, verses 3 through 4, peace was taken from the earth. You know, a lot of people have lost their peace during this whole thing. It's a foreshadowing of what will to be. In chapter 6, verses 5 through 6, the food supply was disrupted, but the oil and the wine were left unaffected. Wine and spirits were doing good. So were the oil companies in the end times. In CNN Business, it said, what happened to our food supply if American farmers can't farm? All of a sudden, people are starting to ask questions like, what's going to happen if the food supply is disrupted? Isn't that an interesting question to ask? It's not something I remember ever being heard of asked of. Now, there was times when there were certain parts of the world or pockets of the world that would have food shortages, but never globally. And all of a sudden, now they're asking that question. The Tri-City Herald out of Washington State said fishing and hunting bans extended another month in Washington because of the coronavirus. All of a sudden now people are not allowed to fish or hunt. Some of those people said that's how they eat, is by fishing and hunting. And all of a sudden they're saying, how do I feed my family? You also have the New York Post on April 20th. Something I never thought about. They said this: beer and seltzer could go flat as coronavirus shuts down CO2 productions. That has to do with the oil industry, since the oil prices, the supply for the demand is so little for the supply, they're starting to shut it down. They're saying that's going to affect the soda because they get the CO2 from the oil companies. Also, I don't know if you heard this, but out in Minnesota, I think it was, they just slaughtered 61,000 chickens because they said they couldn't get people to buy the eggs. And then also they had another story, hundreds of thousands of pigs were slaughtered because of the virus. Food supplies being affected, it kind of makes us intrigued to start to say, oh, wait a minute, maybe I can see how in the end, when God decides to return, how all this will come together. Then you have Revelation chapter 6, verses 7 through 8, says 25% of people died from the sword, famine, pestilence, or aka a pandemic, and wild animals. According to the New York Post just this week, they said that approximately a couple 100,000 people will die from this virus. But they're saying now that 254 million people might starve to death because of this situation that we're going through. The numbers here are amazing. And the Bible talked about how people would die from the sword, which is fighting, from famines, from pestilences or pandemics, and wild animals. Isn't it interesting? We're starting to see some of these things being talked about all of a sudden. In Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 to 11, those who were killed for their faith cried out for justice. We see a picture of those in heaven now that are saying, Lord, when will we get our justice for being killed for our faith? Well, you know, if you went to Iran or other countries like China, they would kill you for being a Christian if you're outspoken, or imprison you. North Korea, they'll put you in a prison camp, which is basically a slow death sentence for those who go in. In Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 through 17, the Bible tells us this: when he opened the 6th seal, I looked, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, the full moon became like blood. And the stars of the sky fell to the earth as the fig tree sheds its winter fruit when shaken by a gale. The sky vanished like a scroll that is being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. Then the kings of the earth and the great ones, and the generals and the rich and the powerful, and everyone, slave and free, hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains. I just want to stop there for a second. They were just saying that today there's more slaves in the world than at any other time in human history. Isn't that interesting? It says here, slaves and free. There will be slaves at the end of the times of the world, and we know that there are slaves today. The Bible also told us here that other things were going to happen. There'd be great earthquakes. We heard about in Oklahoma just this past weekend. One day they had as many tornadoes as they averaged for the entire month of April. A lot of crazy things are happening. And next week we're going to look into what's going on with those signs. But for now, let's get back to the passage here. Verse 16 says, "Call to the mountains and rocks to fall on us and hide us from the face of him who is seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb." They're saying, hide us from God himself, from Jesus the Messiah. We don't want to be near him. We don't want to bow down and worship him and repent. We want to continue to live in our sins. We want to hide from him and tell him to leave us alone. How many today, maybe you're listening and you're hiding from God? You cannot hide from him. Ask Jonah. Read the book of Jonah in the Bible. He tried to hide and couldn't. He found out whether I'm in Sheol or whether I'm in the belly of a fish or whether I'm on land. I cannot hide from God. He's everywhere. The Bible goes on to tell us, "For the great day of their wrath has come, and who can stand?" The day is coming. We don't know when that day will be, but we know that Jesus is coming. We always say, he's coming again for me. He's coming soon. Are you prepared and ready for his return? In Revelation chapter 7, verses 1 through 8, God keeps a remnant of his people to go into all the world and make disciples. In Revelation chapter 7, verses 9 through 17, we enter into heaven and see a multitude of believers, too many to count, from every nation and language, who are wearing white robes washed in the Lamb's blood, having palm branches, interestingly enough, which we just celebrated Palm Sunday about, which meant that he was the Lord, he was the Messiah, he's the King, he's the promised one. They have palm branches in their hands, and before the throne of God, worshiping him, being thankful, they will never again be hungry or thirsty, waiting for Jesus to wipe away their tears. Remember Jesus in John chapter 4, he said to the woman at the well, he said, you can keep pulling the water up from here, but you'll be thirsty, but I will give you new living water, and you'll never thirst again. And she said, give me this water. That's the water that God gives to us when we get saved. Our soul is no longer craving and thirsty because we've been filled and saturated with God's love and overwhelmed by his joy and salvation and forgiveness. He's also going to wipe away every tear. Those who are shedding tears right now for different reasons, God's going to wipe those away. And we're never going to cry again for sadness, but only for joy. In Revelation chapter 8, we move into chapter 8, verses 1 through 5. As God's listening to all his saints' prayers, he throws them down to the earth and says, now I will answer those prayers. And now God is going to judge the world and answer those prayers by punishing those who have punished his children. How many of us are parents that would say, if you mess with my kids, I'll mess with you? God finally says, my patience has run out. Now I'm going to deal with what you've done to my kids. That's Revelation chapter 8, verses 1 through 5. Chapter 8, verses 6 through 13. We see the 7 trumpets, hail and fire mixed with blood destroys a third of all the land on earth. A great burning mountain is thrown into the sea. A third of the sea is turned to blood, killing a third of all the living creatures in the sea to die, and destroying 1/3 of all the ships in the world. Fresh water has what's called wormwood thrown into them, making the waters bitter, killing many people, and a third of the sun and moon were struck, and a third of their light disappeared. Wow. Does that sound scary? Kind of sounds like we're seeing some of those things today, but not many of them. But one day this will happen. It goes on in Revelation chapter 9. We see in verses 1 through 11, a shaft to the bottomless pit was opened, allowing smoke to fill the earth, blocking even more of the sunlight, and locusts sounding like chariots, who served their king called Satan, came out of that, and they did not touch the grass or the trees, but rather bit or stomped people who were not sealed with the mark of the Lamb, causing them great pain for 5 months. But the people wished they could die, but they weren't allowed. I don't know if you remember back in Africa, not that long ago, just in the last 3-4 months before all this started with the virus, they had a plague of locusts, they said, that ate up entire cities. They were so big. They called it of biblical proportions, if you Google it. Interesting. The Bible said there'll be locusts coming again one day. Revelation 9, verses 12 through 19 says, 3 plagues killed another third of all humans. I wanted to share with you a story about what they said. Originally, according to the Intelligencer, on March 13, 2020, they said the CDC's worst case coronavirus models of 214 million people would be infected and 1.7 million would be dead. They have now revised that number to just about 200,000 will die from this and a couple hundred million will get it. It's interesting they went to that level, but even that does not compare to what will happen in Revelation. In the Hill of 2008, this year, Dr. Fauci said, looks like the U.S. deaths will be lower than originally projected. He thinks the number of U.S. deaths from the coronavirus will end up being less than the original projected 100 to 200,000. The model is now projecting around 60,000 deaths in the U.S. They've changed it to about 60 or so thousand will die. Interestingly, Revelation chapter 9, verses 20 to 21 says, yet the people on earth refused to repent for they worship demons, idols. They were murderers, sorcerers with sexual immorality, and their thefts. They refused to turn back to God and say, God, forgive us when all this was happening. I asked the question with all that's going on today, have we repented and asked God to forgive us? Have we gotten right with God, whether we're Christians or non-Christians? Have we come to God, all of us, as human beings, men, women, and children, and said, God, would you help me do this? I need your help. Would you forgive me for my sin? And come into my heart and say, Lord God, I haven't been living for you the way I'm supposed to. God, would you forgive me and restore back to me the joy of my salvation? That's what God wants from all of us. But how many of us today are doing that? It's easy to say, well, why would people repent? But are we repenting right now in the midst of this virus? I would say majority are not. Some are. And I think that's a picture of what will happen in Revelation. The Bible tells us in chapters 10 and 11, we enter back into heaven and see what God is doing. Then they hear about the 2 witnesses who will be appointed to call the nations of the world to repent. When their time is up, they'll be killed, and 3.5 days later they will be risen back again and taken up into heaven with God. In chapter 12 of Revelation, verses 1 through 6, Satan starts to attack God's chosen people, Israel, and they flee into the mountains. In chapters 12, verses 7 through 17, all of a sudden we see a war starts in heaven. You know, up until this point, Satan's been going back and forth. The Bible says that Satan went up into heaven, was talking to God about Job. He said, God said, you consider my servant Job. And there's a conversation going on between God and Satan right there in heaven. We know that Jesus tells us in 1 John that we have an accuser in Satan who accuses us daily, and we have an advocate with the Father who's Jesus Christ. Satan is continually accusing us before our Heavenly Father every day in heaven about all of our failures of the world, of people, of Christians, trying to condemn them. But then a war breaks out here in Revelation 12. And in heaven, Satan and his angels, who are called demons, are finally thrown out of heaven once and for all. And now they are on earth, and since Satan can't win the angelic battle in the heavens, now he takes on God's people directly, trying to kill them, but God protects them. It's interesting because Satan thinks he can beat God, but even when he fights the angels, when Michael is finally unleashed, and God says, Michael, who's God's archangel today, go kick Satan out of my heaven, take the angels. Those 2/3 of the angels that are in heaven right now kick out Satan's 1/3 and throw him down to the earth. How could Satan think he's going to beat God if he can't even beat the angels? His peers. It's just a question. Then the Bible tells us that as Satan can't beat the angels, he now attacks us as people because we are not able to defend ourselves against Satan because we are flesh and spirit, but he is more spirit. He's not flesh. In Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 through 4, Satan now gives his power to his kingdom on earth. Remember, Satan is the prince of the air. And he tried to offer Jesus the kingdoms of this world when he tempted Jesus. Now he's going to try and build his kingdoms together. And he's going to try to get power on earth and create his own kingdom. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 5 through 10, the Bible says this. And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. Interestingly enough, it's quite amazing to me that it says this person, this beast, the mouth was uttering haughty and blasphemous words. How many times have we been on Facebook or other social media hearing blasphemous and foul potty mouths, as we used to call them the kids? That's been out there. It's not hard to believe that people, we listen to presidents or vice presidents or heads of state that when they think the mics are off, start cursing up a storm. That's not something new. When Billy Graham heard Richard Nixon tapes, he couldn't believe it because of all the foul language. He said, this is not the man I know. It's very easy for us to hide it, but this Antichrist, this beast, will just spew them out of his mouth publicly and everybody will accept it. Let me give you a simple picture of that. How many times have you heard curse words on regular television or a TV program? If you go back 50 years ago, you'd be banned and your contract would be voided if you said a foul word. Now we say it all the time. We've learned to accept it. We've just been crock-potted into accepting what is. It goes on to tell us in verse 6, it opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Just think about how many times people say the name of Jesus as a curse word on television or in public. In verse 7, also it was allowed to get war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. This kind of sounds like what everybody's trying to push for, which is a one world order, a government that's going to oversee the entire world. They're pushing for it now under the WHO, the World Health Organization. They wanted to say that they will be the ones to tell everybody when to reopen the government, every government, not each nation. There's a push for this. And so, it's interesting, this will eventually happen. And verse 8, and all who dwell on earth will worship it. What do you mean they're going to worship it? Well, you know what? They say sometimes, give me a God or give me a devil, but I'll worship him, I'll follow him. People will worship something. We're created to worship. If we do not worship God, we'll worship something else. People worship their money. People worship their fame, their prestige. They worship their family. They worship other things. You figure out what it is, they worship it. Just look at how they treat their cars. Sometimes people pamper their cars. You breathe on it wrong, they'll yell at you. They worship that. Now they don't bow down and worship it like this, but it becomes their God as a picture. They think this is the thing I'm here to live my life for. We live our life as Christians to worship and glorify God, but the world lives their life to bless themselves, and in essence they're worshiping the things they have or that they've done or accomplished. In verse 9, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. God says, if you have an ear, listen to this. Learn from this that you might know. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity, he goes. If anyone is to be slain with the sword must he be slain. Here is a call for the endurance and faithful of his saints. In verse 11, it goes on to say, then when I saw another beast rising up out of the earth, it had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. Isn't that interesting terminology? It looked like a lamb. It had two horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. You know, a dragon is always a picture in the Bible, typically, of Satan. That serpent. He started in Revelation chapter 3, when he was a serpent in the Sea of Eve, and he was a serpent throughout most of the Bible. He's a dragon, a trickster. And it exercised all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. Isn't that interesting? Imagine if somebody all of a sudden said they died from the virus and came back to life. People would be amazed. You know, they say they almost lost Boris, I think it was Boris Yeltsin, was that his name, from the UK, the Prime Minister. He almost died, but he made it. Imagine if he died and then came back to life. What people would say and think then. This will somehow happen where this beast will die and then will be revived again. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of the people. You know, God, every time Satan does something, he tries to mimic God. Let me give you an example. Remember Moses when he went to see Pharaoh and he threw down his snake? What did Pharaoh's guys do? They threw down their staffs. And what happened? Moses' staff ate their staffs. And then Moses got a stick back. See, Satan likes to mimic everything God does. He doesn't stop. Throughout history, he's done the same things. Here, he's going to try and do it again. And by signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who will dwell on the earth. Think about how Hitler deceived the German people into thinking he was doing the right thing. If Germany today, they continue to teach that history so that they never repeat what happened during Nazi Germany's Hitler's reign. It's easy to be deceived and to be tricked by those who want to deceive us. Telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast so that the image of the beast might even speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. You know, I'm thinking about this and thinking about his Weekend at Bernie's. Remember that old movie where Bernie died and the guys that every time the music played, they started dancing like this and they put sunglasses on and everybody thought he was still alive? You see, this is already in our minds. This is going back to the 80s. You didn't have technology like you have today. You could make that look really good now. Satan somehow will cause this man to die and then make it look like he's alive. Why does he do that? Because Jesus died and rose again. And because Jesus died and rose again, Satan's got to mimic that by making his guy die, look like he died and came back to life. See the picture here? Satan's always mimicking what God does. In Revelation chapter 13, we go on to verse 16, which I don't seem to have right here. But it says this, also it caused all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked by the right hand on their forehead. You hear that word? It caused all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or on their forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has this mark. You cannot buy food, you cannot sell food unless you have this mark on your hand or on your forehead. That is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number of it is man is the number 666. Why do we always say, no, I want that number 666? Because the Bible says that's the mark of Satan, the mark of man. 666 is the closest you can get to 7, which is a holy number for God, that you can get to. So Satan's mark is 666. But here's what's really amazing. You will not be allowed to buy or sell anything. Why does Satan want them to get a chip or some type of a mark on their hand or their forehead? Because the Bible says that in Revelation, he will put a seal on his saints on their foreheads. So what does Satan do? I'm going to mark, I'm going to do exactly what God did. I'm going to mimic him. I got to do what God does because I got to be just as cool and hip as him. In the Telegraph on April 19th this year, there we go. It says this, Bill Gates backs $1 billion to cover Earth in video surveillance satellites. You go on to read that article, it says he wants those satellites of Google Earth to be in real time, which means if you click on your street, you can watch the cat run over, you can watch the cat running and see it on your computer at the same time from Google Earth. Isn't that interesting? Then they can monitor everything we're doing. In Connecticut, they just started sending up drones to make sure people were social distancing, or if not, they were going to fine them. That's just one example of this idea of monitoring people. They claim it in a good name, but it takes away our freedom, and it takes away our rights, and now all of a sudden, Big Brother's watching every move we make. And if you pick your nose, they're going to catch you. And if you don't pay your taxes, they're going to catch you, and you would no less. They're going to monitor everything you say. In China, they're doing that, been doing that for years. They have social statuses. If you talk to the wrong person, your status is dropped, so they force you to self-isolate from people of different social groups who come against or question their government. Just on April 18th, this last week, Mayor Bill de Blasio tells New Yorkers to take photos of anyone not social distancing and report them to the police. That did not end well. There was a lot of stories about how people started making jokes of it, sending pictures of inappropriate things, and messing with it. It shut the whole system down and crashed it because people were saying we're not doing that. You see, the world is setting up not for this pandemic, but for what we were talking about, where no one will be able to buy or sell us to have the mark, and how to enforce that unless you can monitor everybody and catch them. See, if I can make sure that I see somebody selling to somebody that I said doesn't have a mark, I can bring them in and arrest them because I saw them from a satellite somewhere. You don't think the government's going to have access to those satellites? Just saying, it's all preparing for what we see in Revelation. I'm not saying this is Revelation. I'm saying it's preparing us for what is to come. Let me make sure I'm clear about that. In Revelation chapter 14, chapter 8, the Bible tells us, my slide next up here. Another angel and a second followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is the great Babylon. She who made all the nations drink the wine of the possessions of her sexual immorality. Another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image, and receives the mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest, day or night. These worshippers of the beast and its image, and whoever receives the mark of its name. Here is the call for endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, write this, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Blessed indeed, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their deeds follow them. Isn't it interesting here that we see God's wrath is poured out on those who worship the beast, and they're sent into a fiery pit called hell for all eternity, suffering and pain for their choice of rebelling and rejecting Christ. You know, the Bible then goes on to tell us in Revelation chapter 16, verses 1 through 11, those who worship the beast have painful and harmful swords, and everything in the sea is killed. Now all of a sudden there is no fishing because the fish are all dead. It goes on to say that the sun starts to scorch people on earth with fire. Yet they cursed God and refused to repent. Rather than saying, God forgive us, no, we're going to continue on in our sin. We're going to continue to live our life of rebellion. In Revelation chapter 6, verse 12 through 16, the Euphrates River dries up. This allows the nations from the east to assemble at Armageddon, and Satan continually keeps trying to show God that he can cause pain on earth as well. Isn't it interesting? The Euphrates River dried up. You might say, well, what does that matter? Well, the Bible tells us, well, actually, if you just Google this, Euphrates River dries up. It's happened in recent past. It wasn't that long ago, in the last 5 to 10 years, the Euphrates River literally dried up and people were able to walk across the riverbed of parts of the Euphrates. It's happened, and it will happen again. The Bible goes on to tell us that everybody comes and assembles in Armageddon, which is the great battlefield. You thought Gettysburg was a great movie and battle. This will be nothing compared to Armageddon. The amount of people there, the casualties, will be absolutely incredible. It goes on to tell us in chapter 16, verse 17 to 21, God says the greatest earthquake the world has ever seen, splitting the great city of Jerusalem in 3 parts, and cities and nations went away and every island disappeared. Imagine all of a sudden Hawaii is gone. Imagine all the islands you see are gone because of this great earthquake. It's an amazing picture. You might say, well, how could Jerusalem? What are you talking about? Well, when the Hilton was going to be put in 20, 30, 40 years ago on the Mount of Olives, they went searching. They realized it's on a major fault line that literally split that city from north to south, just like the Bible said. Interesting. One day those earthquakes will finally kick out, and God's going to send a massive earthquake like we've never seen before. You know, God caused a worldwide flood like we've never seen before and never heard about since. God's going to do that to an earthquake this time. The Bible goes on to tell us in chapter 17 and chapter 18 are about the destruction of Babylon and how it all will happen quickly in just an hour. In chapter 19, verses 1 through 10, shows that heaven is rejoicing at the marriage supper of the Lamb, which when we will finally sit down at the great table with our Lord and Savior and celebrate what He has done for us. In chapter 19, verse 11 through 21, we'll see Jesus come down from heaven and destroy all those who oppose Him and made war against Him. In chapter 20, verses 1 through 6, Satan will be thrown into the pit for 1,000 years while Christ rules and reigns in Jerusalem for those 1,000 years. Finally, there'll be easy peace. We'll have a king that actually sits on a throne that is just in every single measure. When people come to him and say, God, this is not fair, make this right, he will know exactly what happened and he'll be able to make it right. And we can't argue with him because he knows our hearts, our thoughts, and our actions as well. In chapter Revelation 20, verse 7 through 10, Satan's released from that pit, deceives the nations again, and starts his final war against God. But this time, Satan's just thrown into the lake of fire called hell forever, where he'll spend the rest of eternity tormented day and night. And those who then followed Satan will then be judged with the great white throne. In Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 through 12, the Bible says this: Then I saw a great throne and him. Then it says, I saw a great white throne and him seated on it from his presence, earth, and the sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And, the Bible goes on to say, and I saw the dead and great, both small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. And then another book was opened, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged by what was written in the books according to what they had done. You know, we're going to have to answer to God for what we have done, not for what our neighbor did, not what the president or the governor or the congressman did, but what did we do? We're going to stand before Him and have to give an account. The sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them. They were judged, each one of them, according to what they had done. The death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. That is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. And behold, I am coming soon. So I want to stop there for a second. Jesus here reminds us that He's coming again. And if we're not found written in the Lamb's book of life, we will spend eternity separated from Him. You know, we sing that old song, there's a new name written down in glory, and it's mine. Oh yes, it's not just a catchy song. It's the truth about that Jesus is going to write our names in the book of life, the Lamb's book. And if we're found in that book, our name, we're going to be in heaven. Isn't that cool? Imagine you know you go and you go to vote and you have to sign up for your name and sign it. We're not going to have to sign it. God already did. He just said, come on in. What an amazing blessing that will be. You know, the Bible tells us, I think it's in Job, that He's imprinted us. He's carved our names into the palms of His hands. That's how much He loves us. Revelation chapter 21. God makes a new heaven and a new earth and a new Jerusalem that are perfect. You say this world's a mess. God agrees. He says, I'm going to destroy the whole thing and start over. God said, I'm going to make the earth the way I always intended it. Perfect. More earthquakes, no more pain and suffering, no more cancer, no more pandemics, no more coronavirus, no more worrying about death and life, getting old or young. We're all going to be perfect in God's new heaven and new earth. Then the Bible tells us in Revelation 22, we're reminded that Jesus is coming again. You know, the Bible says in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, as you saw Him ascend up to heaven, He will return. Are we waiting for His return? Are we just waiting for Him to come back? Revelation chapter 22, verse 7 says, and behold, I am coming soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of this prophecy, the words of the prophecy of this book. Isn't that interesting? Jesus speaking. If you look in your Bible, it's in red letters. This is Jesus saying, I'm coming again. Revelation chapter 22, verse 12 to 13, Jesus said again, behold, I am coming soon, bringing my recompense with me to repay each one for what he has done. You know, if you've done what's right, you don't worry, do you? You're looking forward to Him coming back, saying, all right, it's payday, God, give me my money for serving you, right? Isn't that how work goes? When you go to your job and you do a good job, you stay away for Friday, right? When you didn't do your job, you're not sure you're going to get a pink slip or a paycheck. Why? Because you know you haven't done what's right. Same with God. He's going to judge us according to our deeds, whether good or bad, whether we accepted Him or not. He's going to judge those who have not accepted Him, and He's going to reward those who have. It's not about what we've done. It's about what He did and whether we accepted His free gift. Revelation chapter 12, 22, verse 13. I am the Alpha and the Omega, which is the first and last letter in the Hebrew alphabet. He says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, and the beginning and the end. It's actually the Greek alphabet, in case you call my error. Alpha and Omega is the first and last letter in Greek. Jesus says, I'm the beginning and the last, and I'm coming again. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 22, verse 16, Jesus said this, I, Jesus, have sent my angels to testify to you about these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. And then, Revelation chapter 22, verse 20 to 21, he who testifies to these things says, surely I am coming soon. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. The grace of our Lord Jesus be with you all. Amen. That's how the book ends. Amen. So be it, Lord. Come quickly. Let me ask you a question. Are you ready for Jesus to come quickly? I don't know about you, but if things don't change and we're starting to worry about food shortages and not being able to buy food because there is none, will we call the Lord, come quickly? Are we prepared for what it might be and what eventually will be coming? We don't know when this will be. Jesus said this, be prepared, because it's like the virgins, the 10 virgins, waiting for Him to come. Some had oil, 5 of them had oil in their lamps, 5 of them didn't have enough. And when they heard Him coming, because in those days, when the husband would come, the groom would come, he'd send people ahead, preparing everybody, yelling, the groom is coming, the bridegroom is coming. And so they'd all start to get ready for Him to be ready. And so the women woke up and, 5 and said, we're ready, let's go. And the other 5 said, wait, we don't have enough oil in our lamps. We used to sing that old song, give me oil in my lamps, keep it burning. Why? Because these are songs from Scripture. Because what they did is they needed lamps to see. They didn't have flashlights. That was their torches, their lamps with oil in them. So 5 of them were gone. They had their oil. And the other 5 said, wait a minute, ladies, hold up. We don't have enough. Could you share with us some? They said, I'm sorry, but I don't have enough for both of us. And so they went to get the oil. By the time they got back, they were gone. The groom had already come, and they had already celebrated. Jesus is coming. We don't know when. That's the picture, that story. But when He does come, the Bible says, like a thief in the night, when nobody's expecting Him, are we prepared and ready? Are we saying, I'm ready, Lord, take me home? And Gabriel blows that trumpet, and the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more. You see, Jesus is going to come again, and are we ready for Him to come? Because there's no one else like Him. There is no other God besides Him. So the bottom line is this. Jesus said in Revelation 22:16, I have sent my angel to testify to you about these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright and morning star. When He says He's the root and the descendant of David, He's saying, I am the Messiah and I am the King of kings and the Lord of lords. And every knee will bow and every tongue will confess I am Lord. So are you ready to meet our Maker? Are you ready? Am I ready to say, Lord, come quickly? If you don't know Jesus, you're saying, yeah, whatever, I'm not ready. But if you know Him, are you ready? If you don't know Him, do you want to be ready? Because Jesus is coming. The signs are pointing to it. Next week, we're going to talk about all these signs that Jesus said to watch out for in Matthew 24. So here's our next steps. Maybe say, God, I accept your gift of forgiveness. Maybe you say, Father, help me to remember you are in control. Do we remember God is in control? And all of this is God orchestrating for His purpose and plan. Maybe you say, Father, help me to know who you are and how I can tell others about you. Or maybe you say, Father, heal my broken and sinful heart. There's a lot of people right now that are broken inside, that are desperate for hope, that have no hope. And God says He can heal that and He can restore to you the joy of salvation. Let's take a moment and pray. Father, as we come before you this morning, Lord, we recognize that you are coming again, Father, that the signs are pointing to that, Lord. As we look through Revelation, we can see so many of the things that have happened right now in this past 2 months are pointing and directing us right to what will be soon. So, Father, as we prepare for your return, allow us, Father, to make sure our hearts have repented. That, Father, first of all, we know you as our personal Lord and Savior. That we say, if we don't, dear Jesus, please come into my heart and save me, Lord. I need your help right now. I cannot do this anymore on my own. I need you. Forgive me of my sins and heal my heart. I make you my Lord and Savior, and I will follow you all the days of my life. If you're a Christian, you say, no, I haven't been living like Jesus is coming again. I've kind of been living like I'm going to be here for the next 30 years or more. Maybe you say, Jesus, forgive me for not taking seriously that you're coming again at any moment. Forgive me, Father. Help me, Lord, to live for you. We thank you for this help, Lord. We glorify you for your love and your salvation. That, Father, you continually give opportunities to revelation for people to repent, yet they refused. Help us, Lord, never to be those people that refuse. Pray all this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.